I just want to get an idea of like the timeline.
Hmm.
Because I know you've done that, like you've lost weight twice, but
Hmm.
how long did it take you to get to 500 pounds the first time?
Yep.
How long ago was that?
Hmm.
And then you lost it. Like, can
Hmm.
you give us a timeline of like how
Oh yeah.
long everything you were in every
Hmm.
phase?
Oh yeah, for sure. So for me, I was big my whole life. I was 225 pounds when I was 10. That was when I was first put on a diet by my family. I was bribed onto Weight Watchers. I was
Whoa.
told that I would be paid $3 a pound for every pound I lost. They weren't going to give me the money until I lost it, till I hit the goal weight. And honestly, I hit that goal weight and then I went and spent that money on candy. Like I literally, like, I planned this excursion where it was like, okay, they're done paying attention to me. I can go eat candy. And so I was, that was sixth grade, when I was 225 pounds. And I got down to 110 pounds by seventh grade because I'm fantastic at losing and gaining weight. And I entered high school and started putting weight back on. We moved. And when I was 16, I was 350 pounds and had my parents have another freak out moment and basically say, we're going to take your car away if you don't make some changes. So I went back to Weight Watchers, and it's fun being 16 years old, sitting in a Weight Watchers meeting with middle-aged women glaring at you when you lose 9 pounds in a week. I
Oh my
remember
God.
very clearly this very large, intimidating woman. I lost 9 pounds, I think, my first week, and they clap for you and give you a medal and a ribbon and all these things. Weight Watchers is very big on like cheerleading.
Yeah.
And I sat down, and this woman turned around and put her finger on my face, and she said, "Don't get too excited. You're a man. Men lose faster. We're not impressed." And I was like, okay, I'm
Wow.
very sorry. I apologize. But I lost weight again. I graduated high school at 190 pounds, went to college. I went to college in Ithaca at Cornell University, which, if you know the campus at all, it's all hills. So I think there was a combination there of my eating starting to get out of control in college, but walking all the time, all day, kind of kept it down under control. So I stayed in that 250, 300 pound range for most of college. When
Mm.
I graduated, I graduated in 95. I'm close to 100 years old. So I graduated in 95. I started working. I was working in student affairs. I was a residence life person. I worked in the dorms, and I moved to Vermont, and my weight just kind of took off from there. Over the next few years, my weight then went from 300 to 350 to 400 to 450 to north of 500. And I saw 500 for the first time in the early 2000s. So I was probably in that 500 to 540 pound range from about 2002 to about 2008, 2009. And then like I said, I had moved cross country. I decided to kind of pursue some other opportunities. I moved from Rhode Island to California. And if you remember, 2008 was the economy collapse. So I chose a great time to move. Everything was really, everything was coming up roses. A 500-pound person moving cross country then, and then trying to find work and all of that just was not adding up. And interestingly enough, if you're not making money, you start to lose weight. I know, food has nothing to do with there's been a lot of posts on social media recently that, what you eat has nothing to do with your body type. But apparently, if you're poor and don't have money, you start to lose weight. So I went on a little bit of a poverty diet. I moved back to the East Coast in 2009. And once I got work, surprisingly, the weight came back. And I was working at that point for a family company, and that had been open for 40 years. And through everything that was going on, the company closed, which was devastating to my family, but also devastating to me because there I was, 500 pounds, and realizing that I could barely walk into an office for an interview, never mind like look presentable, show someone that I could work for them. I hate to talk about these things in these terms sometimes, but the reality was I wasn't hireable. I
Mm.
was a mess. So I decided I had that opportunity to work on myself. I needed to get work to pay rent, all of those things. That was when I discovered paleo. It was right when the Whole30 was first kind of popping up and people were talking about ingredient quality and all of that. So I dove headfirst into paleo. And by 2013, my birthday in 2013, that was my 40th birthday. I got down to 210 pounds. That was the goal that I had set for myself. And I had spent a solid, 2.5 years or so, just hammering away, white knuckling through. Honestly, like as much as I loved what I was doing with paleo, it was always about just holding on to the rails as tight as I could and pushing to get the scale to move. I was starting to do fasting before fasting was something anyone was talking about, because I was just trying to calorie restrict. So I was like, well, if I eat every other day and then I only eat a little bit on the days that I eat, that's even, that's going to keep the scale moving even more. So it's funny because I was listening to one of your episodes that you put out like a week ago, the Q&A, and you were talking about when fasting and calorie restriction starts to become disordered. And I think that started to happen for me. Like, I was just chasing the scale. It had nothing to do with what I wanted my life to be like. I had done no work to prepare myself for what my world would be like when I went from being 500 pounds to 210 pounds. And when you've lived your life significantly obese, and then all of a sudden you're quote unquote normal, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of different things that happen. There's a lot of things that you're not expecting from the world that you've never even learned about. And which is why for me, so it was May of 2013, I was 210 pounds, and I went on vacation and came back from that vacation and fell off the rails hard, fell deeply back into eating the way that I used to eat, living that life, convincing myself that all the changes I had made weren't worth it. There was just a lot of just really powerful self-delusion that this was not what I was supposed to be doing. And I shot back up in weight. By the fall of that year, October specifically, by mid-October, I was 480 pounds. So I put on 270 pounds in under 6 months, which people hear sometimes and don't believe. I've got pictures. It was happening. It's not... that year was about eating. Like, I was eating almost every moment I was awake. It was about indulging every whim. It was like someone who deals with alcohol issues going on a bender that lasted for months. And I came out of it, and coming out of it, it wasn't like, holy crap, what have you done? It was more, okay, I guess this is the way life is going to be. Let's just accept that this is what's going to happen. You may die soon. You may not make it, but hey, at least you're happy, right? You had pizza last night. You're happy. And I just lived that life for a few years. And I really had convinced myself that there was no future for me beyond what I was doing within that world. Like, I like to say, the bigger you get, the smaller your world gets. And when you start to build that really small of an existence, it's hard to see outside of that bubble. I wrote a letter to my family that I used to keep by my bed, just in case I didn't wake up, because I was convinced I wasn't going to wake up one morning. And the letter was all of this bullshit about, don't worry, there was nothing you did wrong. I lived a happy life. And, to me now, when I talk about it, it almost makes me uncomfortable because of the hubris it takes to be able to put something like that down on paper and pretending somehow that's okay. That's going to make everyone feel better. And it really was just about how lost I was as a person. And it took coming out of that, like I said, it took finding that desire to live. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people that it took me being in my 40s to finally realize that I wanted to be alive. Like, I was just existing for decades. Like, it was just whether I lived or died, I didn't care. I didn't go to doctors. I didn't do anything to take care of anything medically for myself because I knew the answers I was going to get. I knew what they were going to tell me. I knew I most likely had diabetes from the symptoms I was showing. I knew that I was experiencing challenges and difficulties. I knew that I probably had sleep apnea, and I was terrified. And I didn't go to a doctor until I finally got pneumonia a year after I started keto, or not a year, about six or 7 months after I started keto. And that was the first time that I had to kind of face that music and deal with that. And I don't think if I hadn't started this journey, I would have went to the doctor when I was sick. I probably would have just let whatever happened happen. It was realizing, hey, you've been telling all these people that you're fighting to live. So now you need to face, this biggest fear that you've ever had in your life. So that was 2017 that I came around to keto. Like, I discovered, I feel like when you're someone who's significantly gaining weight, because I tried every diet, like you can name almost any diet, and I tried it at some point in my life. You keep up on what the trends are. So the K word had kind of bounced around a bit. I'd heard it out there. I bought Vinnie Tortorich's book. I bought Jimmy Moore's first book, and I never read them, but I had them because I think you feel a little bit better, at least if you have the books in your house. And the situation that developed for me in 2017 was my parents were adopting 2 infants, and that were a part of our family that were going to go into the system. And I had a discussion with my dad, and he basically said, we're older, we're doing this, but we're going to need your help. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. And him saying that had nothing to do with him pleading with me to not die. Like, he was never judgmental of me, like was very kind of accepting. But it was more about him expressing a real need that he had. And it struck me, to have another human being basically saying, I need you around. Because I realized that as much as he was saying he wasn't going to live to see them graduate high school, I wasn't going to live to see them go to preschool if I didn't do something. And I realized that I wanted to make change. So I knew I had to do something. I knew low carb was always something that helped me with the severe hunger and cravings and all of those things that I dealt with. And I also knew I needed to be more mindful. I needed to work on what would come as I went through this journey. How was I reacting? How was I feeling? What was going on with me emotionally? And needed to work on that. So it was February of 2017 that I dove into that world.